Hello. I would love today to talk to you about B sections. I think that every time I hear, especially in first Viennese school, a B section, I wonder why couldn't have been told by their teachers to first compose the thematic material of the B section on the heartland of the piece, and then write the A section, in which usually they inject the composers all their thought material, all the intelligence, all the character, all the charm. Like, for instance, in Beethoven's Sonata in D major, the minuet. I would imagine charming as well, cheesy of course, because I just improvise it, and I don't pretend that I'm at all in a position of a scholar to complete a possibly missing B section, but come on. I wasn't intended to make fun of it, I'm sorry, as my finger slipped. It's Beethoven's vengeance on my fingers. Do sharp would have been better, but nevertheless, factually, I find it a very banal, not only me, anybody can say that, B section, the trio. Of course, the reason for which interpretation now comes in account is an œuvre over the œuvre, an hors d'œuvre on the chef d'œuvre. That was unintended, but for fun. When collisions happen in my brain, I like to share them. Sometimes they're healthy laugh, even if not deep. Anyway, to go back to my point, is that as a teacher, I like to tell students it's important to learn how to play well unimportant sections, uninjected with drive, meaning, effect, drama, happiness, any filter of intensity that is storytelling about a psychological way of being. I mean, the opening of 111 announces the color right away. The opening of 106 as well, jubilant, tragic, rather in the other order, but obviously you guessed. And then it is true that when you have a minuet in the Schubert B-flat sonata, benevolent, charming, a bit like that Beethoven D major. And then in Schubert's case, he has a minore. The bass is in hemiol, obviously, pizzicato, and the muted horns punctuate at the relative major of the relative minor of major. I get confused. But anyway, good. Thematically, it's not very rich, but at least modulatory. Look at Beethoven. Everything, dotted rhythm, leaps, jumps, drive. This is exactly the impregnatational art to not overplay it, to play nothing well, fully well, but not injected with a meaning. Or an extroverted expression. Naturally, Beethoven, if he was dead at the end of the A section, very few would imagine this banal and in a way musically reposing from the dramatic action of the A section. Leaps and rhythms, dotted rhythms, and this is rhythmless, almost like following inattentively two voices playing canon, but not really involved. Again, this is the kind of drive where you expect to hear perhaps and again, thankfully he didn't do that. And I see in that the real meaning that even if we want to understand, teach, play, record, suggest, hint, how to inhabit intelligently the sections where the action is not an action, it's contemplation. In a way, this is active contemplation, ascending 6, moving string quartet parts, anticipated bass on the third beat. And it's like everything a composer wants to say: modulations, imitations, drive, rhythmic inversions, anticipations, charm, contrast. Organizing the chaos of nature, as first Viennese school post-Baroque did so well. It's a garden, well-groomed, is a facade of a building that appears well-mannered in the sense of its proportions. And all of a sudden, granted, he does more developed that pattern of the triplets in the accompaniment of the middle hand, so to say the right hand, and the left hand dialoguing between two operatic characters, more dramatically. The theme of the first movement of the Tempest, or development in F sharp minor. The second theme of the Pathétique, a dialogue of two hands. I should have played it piano. Anyway, the accompaniment, a little bit banal, almost Albertine. So he's familiar in his piano writing with that idea of dialogue, of imitating almost the trio with three parts, being the right hand or the left hand crossing over the other hand, which maintains the accompaniment, either ostinato or in pattern. And then, naturally, this brings us to a point, which is, how do you play that without to overplay it and without to appear as a performer that you're bored? Perhaps it's because we are in a time period where time attention span is a little bit shortened with media that bombard us from everywhere, and it takes a lot of energy to maintain a concentration in a long run, be it through a section like in fugues we have episodes which obviously are less intense because they don't have the full entrance of a fugue's subject or answer, but just a portion of it becoming a pattern in order to create a circle of fifths movement with a dial to go to another key, like B minor, book 1. The chromaticism and the leaps of the subject are so dramatic, then the episodes are so purposely disconnected from any of these affects. So they almost cleanse the palette between meals. Therefore, the trios should be also that, especially when they're not as driven in terms of their musical meaning. So, of course, when provocatively I like to think, why didn't they first write the B section? Perhaps they would have written it with its own interesting material, but it's not just after the A sections giving it all, then we have to do something else. That something else being sometimes nothing else. Just fulfilling the group of bars that maintain the structure of the building that has to have its formal structure, and sometimes the drive is necessarily less. Perhaps if it was driven everywhere, it would be in the sections of the piece, it would be choking of intensity. Perhaps it would be Scriabin, perhaps it would be, I don't know, some other composers. I mean, Brahms is one of the rare composers who loves to inject with intense, meaningful thematic material everything, including second themes in rondo finales, like the cello and violin concerto, or even B sections of his late intermezzi, like when he does this daydream. It's true that one can say that in 118.2, this theme is so special with those leaps and this intensity, while laid back and benevolent. Sorry, Johannes, for this shortcut. And then the B section in relative minor. Three imitations, F sharp minor, contrast, all of a sudden is like another song, and this other memory, because he mentioned often that, well, it doesn't even have to be mentioned by him, that it sounds nostalgic, memories of past, would it be dances, meetings, singing, loving, happiness. But of course, if this kind of A section, luminous tonality, section would have been then. So how do you inhabit that? Perhaps in minor and modulation. Is so artificial. Ugh, I'm sorry I've done it. I just improvised to let myself get off some of the steam of my thought process. Sometimes it's a good thing to exemplify, well, I do it all the time, what and why, in a way, obviously, happily for us, the composer didn't do what I improvised, which would be the banal thing to do. And sometimes when the banal thing to do, it's really there, and to say it's banal, it's a little bit reductive, and obviously it will appear unsensitive and condescending. I mean, who am I to decide that Beethoven was written a banal trio? Obviously I'm nobody, and I shouldn't think that. But if I share it with you, it's not because I want to show some fake condescendence or fake humility. Nothing fake about it. It's just that I like to think out of the box and say, okay, for the interpretation, I have to understand other opportunities of more driven, in the sense of injected with meaning, B sections. And because the composer chose not to in the case which I demonstrated, then I would like to find a meaningful way to play not meaningful music within the conditions of the soundscape of the composer's thought process. Not to say, like sometimes when pieces finish and an upbeat by a composer and we feel like it doesn't have enough closure, so we do some kind of ending on a downbeat that he didn't think of or wished for. Sometimes we do that intuitively. We inject our own expression over the expression of the composer, let less our expression over the composer's lack of expression in a given section, by contrast, by choice. And of course, if we play the composer's piece, we have to play it as he intended it. And therefore, the contrasting example of what if helps to understand what to do when you play what is. And define it, not frame it, but give it a soundscape in which it thrives. And it's easy to say, difficult to do, because we are more musically, as performers, attracted towards the expression of philosophic, psychological, or mood display that is immediately obvious. Happiness, joyful, jubilation, or sadness, drama. And that I don't talk about, I don't include, meaning program music, like obviously the funeral march by Chopin will be in minor and mournful by the fact it is a funeral march. There is no guessing game. And the relative major for the B section brings that level of solace of the aria, singing the memory of praising the life. Oops, that hopefully was a better life. The celebration is obvious because of the minor of the funeral march. So I go back and say, I have to find a way. If I overstage the staccati, as I like to call it cutifying, no, it should be neither neutral. Undriven doesn't mean neutral. It means that you have to find the articulation that rebounces. Of course, the acoustics matter, but you're not responsible for the architect of the building as much as for your fingers and feet for the pedals. So that you can do it spizzicato, you can do it sarcastic, or just humorous, operatically, and immediately not overdoing it. Of course, nothing is simple because art is artificial, and therefore even any staged sentence is projected to an audience by the actor of the theater. And then if it's overplayed, it's unnatural, it's underplayed, then it doesn't connect. You have to find the right tone, the mezzo piano, the mezzo forte, the mezzo pianissimo, and find a way first to define it for yourself, with your teacher, with your score, with your understanding of the meter, of the patterns, of the leaps. In the first concerto by Beethoven, there is a playfulness, and it's important, but I was still saying to myself often when I hear some pieces, unlike Brahms, for instance, why is this B section purposely, or perhaps hastily by the composers needing to complete it quickly, just a minimal side dish thought that allows then, in fact, when you return to the A section, to really shine more, that A section. So it's a very subtle situation to define the intensity you will inject in the piece towards your audience. The subjective opinion of yours over the piece. Oh, it means so much to me and I have to play it for you. Or it doesn't mean much to me, so what do? I don't want to appear bored because I am, or I shouldn't be, but I don't know what not to be. So you have to give yourself a meaning in it. You just say and you observe and you say there is meaning in observation, is its meaning in action. So if it's only the purpose of the B section to be a sidekick to the A section, it's a little bit reductive. But the wisdom is to manage to find how to play well sections that have less musical, let's say, meat or coffee to grind. And just let it speak, let it flow, let it be. Unlike cadenzas, you're not allowed as a performer to improvise your own B section unless you're a scholar, and then they allow you. So as a teacher, as a performer, I have to find the meaning. Ludwig, what did you want? Can you hear me? Just play it happy. I added a bit, sorry. Well, this is the quirky thought of the day. Perhaps it helps. Perhaps it helps just to laugh at this thought. But I still think B sections can rule. Thank you.